Hey y'all, so today's episode is going to look a little bit differently than normal. I actually have interviewed two historians who do work related to preserving and telling stories related to Tampa's Black history. First, you'll hear from J.R. Davis, who founded and leads the What It Was walking tours that give a brief history. Well, it's not a brief history, it is a 2 hour tour that does different stops through downtown Tampa and focuses on places where Black folks were instrumental to that history. And then also, I'm interviewing Ashley Morrow, who is the founder of Black Tampa Historians, which does a few things related to making sure that stories related to Black history are more accessible to any people who have interest in learning about them. I hope you enjoy the episode, and let's get started. Welcome to Resting Places, Learning Spaces, the podcast where we explore cemeteries, memorial spaces, and more, and the lessons they hold for history, memory, and education. I'm Dr. Hilary Van Dyke, and today this episode brings us back home to downtown Tampa and into the streets themselves as places of memory and learning. My guest is J.R. Davis, founder of the What It Was walking tour. All right. JR, thank you so much for being here today. I'm very, very excited. If you could, can you
Me
please
too.
introduce yourself and any relevant information about you?
Okay. Oh, that's such a loaded question, but okay. So my name is Jamila Davis. I own and operate the What It Was walking tour. I'm a tourist. A tourist, not a tourist. Um, like I'm a history buff. I love documentaries. I have a lot of interest. Tampa is my home, even if I'm not a native Tampan. My kids are. I've been here a long time, Black History Month 365. That's how we roll.
Yes. So
Yes.
what it was a walking tour.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, I say it's like a hybrid Black history walking tour. And it kind of goes around downtown Tampa. We start in the Scrub neighborhood, the historical Scrub neighborhood. But it's more than a walking tour in my opinion, when people ask me to describe it, I feel like it's a journey through time because to me, historical markers and events, they don't make sense if you don't put them in context as to like what was happening and why it's really so important. And so it's like a historical journey through time, focusing on what the African Americans experience was like just in that little section of town. I mean, that's what it is. It's like a journey. It's historical, but it's time travel. And, like it's a whole, to me, it gives you like all the feelings. Like you feel some joy, some pain, some sorrow, some frustration. And then hopefully at the end, like motivation, perhaps.
Yeah, I definitely felt all of those things.
Yeah.
100% when I went on the
Yes.
tour. Yeah, yeah, it really, really was awesome. All right, so that's what the tour is, but what was the moment you realized that Tampa even needed something like this?
There's a lot of different things that led up to it. But I would say the moment that I was like, this should be in Tampa is that, I was in Savannah and I was there to see the New Edition concert. Child. So it was like, I was having a good time. But anywhere that I go, I always wanted to do something cultural. And I want to understand the experience of, the Black community, in that particular area. And so when I was in Savannah, we did this walking tour. There were a few options to, that you could take. They do like a lot of plantation tours and that kind of thing. And I ended up doing a walking tour, and it was good. There were a lot of unanswered questions. It was more like taking you around towards to the markers and stuff. And there wasn't a lot of,
Yeah.
understanding like, well, the time period, like you talking about something that happened 90 years ago. Now you talking about something that happened like 100 years after that. Like now we back to talking about something in 1960. And
Yeah.
then, I said, here I am with all these suggestions and all this commentary about how it should have been done. And I started to, like think about like how I would do it. I would do it like this. I would
Yeah.
do it like that. He should have done this. He should have done that. And I just kind of took all that energy and I kind of focused it inward. And one thing about in Tampa is that there is a lot of culture here. I've gotten into so many conversations like there's no culture and this, there is a lot of culture here. I think you have to like, know where to find it. You have to find your squad, your people or whatever. But when it comes to something that's like that can be kind of like touristy, you know, I think like that stuff should be like super available for somebody who's just here for a weekend. Like you're in Tampa and you like to play in the sun and go to the football game and everything. And so like even at the History Center, I think they offer a super valuable tour of
Yeah.
Central Avenue and it's amazing. It's amazing. But it's like quarterly. You
Hmm.
gotta like on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock or whatever. And I was like,
Right.
no, this should be something that like if I'm in town for the weekend, because that's how I roll. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
when I'm
Right.
somewhere. And I thought that was something that, people might really appreciate if they had the opportunity while they were visiting in town or whatever, and they could easily get to something that like fit that bill to round out your trip. So that's
Yeah.
kind of when
Well, I love that you decided to start the tour. It was just really, I mean, just so good. It was just so good. And I learned so much. I feel like I am, a pretty learned person, particularly in the Black history world. And the whole tour was just like, what? What? What?
that's
Um,
the thing about Tampa though. It's like
yeah,
there's so much and then what you find out helps you to understand so much about what's going on today.
right.
That's the thing. And so you do
Yeah,
have to be kind of like a digger to find out
yeah,
stuff and like get, figure out and a researcher or whatever. So if you're not honed in on it, it's not that accessible kind of information,
yeah.
which, hopefully we're trying to change that.
So how'd you come up with the name for your tour?
Okay, I came up with the name expressly because when people would come to visit me and I would take them around to like, oh, well, I want to show you this or show you that. When it comes to like a lot of Black history, and not just in Tampa, everywhere, it's not there anymore. So I would find myself always saying, well, what it was. And like it was
What had
that,
happened
or
was
yeah, what had happened was, and this tour is really about that. You're not gonna see like an actual, you're not going to see like the house, the community, you're going to have to visualize it. And so it's
Mhm.
part of the story is trying to explain what it was, like what it was physically and what it was as far as like what was happening, like what was happening in the world, in the state, in the city, in the country at that time. So I just found myself using that phrase all the time because you have to like harken yourself back to what it was in order to like understand, the journey of the tour.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So how do you navigate telling hard histories in public spaces that people move through every day with no realization that any of this stuff
I know.
was there?
Yeah, I do, I do. Like I don't like because we're literally walking through downtown. People are like eating, drinking, having a date, like walking their dog or whatever. And so you want to, I think a lot of it is about tone, because the tone, even though you're saying something that might kind of be you like upsetting, or it's not meant to be inflammatory, but people can take it that way depending on the words that you're using. Because you want to say like, hey, he was a white man, or there was a black man, or that, like, the white people in the community didn't want this or that. I think a lot of it is about your tone. When the tone is not aggressive, then people are more curious to what you're talking about, instead of, potentially being, inflamed by it. Like, what?
Yeah.
They're kind of, are like, it becomes very clear to them very quickly that it's some kind of tour, or there's some kind of group. But, it's not about, making anybody feel bad. It's really,
Right.
it's storytelling. It's like you're telling the story, but it's nonfiction. It's not a
Right.
fictional. So I think it's just about, keeping it very conversational and painting it like you're just kind of being the narrator.
So I think I agree with you that you definitely are like painting this really vivid story. And in your bio, you say something about that you want people to feel like they're like watching a juicy documentary. It is a little bit like that.
It's like kind of dichotomy, like with
Mhm.
Tampa, and I'm sure Florida and a lot of places, but you can really see it in Tampa
Yeah.
when you start to like peel the onion. Like, oh, how did that
Yeah.
happen?
I didn't send this question in advance, but I am curious, how do you research for this? Like what have you been doing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh,
Basically, I subscribe to, like, the old newspapers.com and newspaper
yeah,
archives. I
same.
love just combing through. I love just
Yeah.
combing
Yeah.
through the old newspapers. I mean, same thing with the census records, the slave schedules, the old city directories. I love looking at an old city directory, the old what Sanborn maps and everything. Any type of like Dr. Rivers or David Jackson, like all these kind of Florida Black historians that focus on Black history, I
Mhm.
kind of get their stuff and I go right to the index and I look for Tampa just to see. And then I
Right.
get that and kind of use it and take that, whatever name or time period. And then I go to the newspaper and try to, so it's a lot of piecing it together through a lot of materials that are just open. I go to the library, go through microfiche, especially like when I'm trying to like really figure out who a person was. So I use all the same sources that any of us have, but I just kind of, dig in, and I have this like master list of like keywords. So like sometimes, because it's crazy, you could look through a newspaper like backwards and forwards, but if you don't have that word, you're missing
Yeah.
something
Right.
super important. So you can put like lynching but not lynched, and like, like sometimes it's
Yeah.
just like these little variations. And so I have these, like first negro, first colored, first negro, more first negress, like, like I have all these
Yeah.
things. And so it's really using like a lot of the things that are available to anyone, but just like going really deep and then like layering it with the map and then like this and that. So you can kind of get a picture of where these things happened.
I was actually in the USF
Oh, you
archives.
went
Like,
today.
I did. Have you heard of the Tampa Through Time portal?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna email this to you. So the Tampa Through Time portal is, I'm just gonna read their little description of themselves.
Yes.
So it's from USF libraries and it merges archives, digital tools, and mapping to allow users to immerse themselves in the city's rich history. So it takes like all these different resources from the special collection and layers them on top of a map. Can I share my screen?
Wait, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It has
So there's this
pictures
sort of
too.
stuff. The other thing they have is trails. So
Hmm.
for example, you could pick factories walking tour. And
Oh.
yeah, yeah. And you pick wherever you want to start, but ideally start at one. And
Oh,
then it says Cigar City's. cigar factory walking tour, and then you click on the picture and zoom in, and there's information here. But if you click view in gallery, then you're getting like all these photos.
Wow, that is
Mm.
dope.
Yeah.
So they've already
Um,
placed the picture with the known
mhm.
location.
Yeah, and then they also have these overlays. So then when you
Oh, I
say
see.
overlay, it
Oh, it
puts
knows
the
where to
sand,
overlay it.
yeah, it puts the Sanborn map that you're looking at over the area.
Oh, that is dope.
Right?
Because I mean, literally, you have to look at it and eyeball it and try to like figure it out. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, just what you were saying just now just made me think about that. I was like, wait,
Oh
I
my
think we
God,
need
I'm
to
so
see this. And it's a resource that's constantly being like updated.
updated.
So yeah, it's very much like a work in progress sort
And
of
what's it
thing.
called?
Tampa through time.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I
And I'm
know
gonna
what
say,
I'm gonna do tonight.
so thinking about the tours, what's been the hardest moment for you from a tour? And then like what's been the best moment for you from a tour?
The hardest moment, I mean, I definitely had one lady, she just became super emotional about it. And I think part of that too is that, you want to end the tour on a good note
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it just feels like so much struggle and so much obstacle and like so much to overcome, and it's this constant, really like story of like being able to conquer like a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
But when you kind of get to the end, and it's because it's a physical end too, like it's we have to end the discussion and end the journey, and we end back at Perry Harvey Park, and we're talking about what was there and what it used to be. And I feel like sometimes that can just feel, and I had this one lady, and she had such an emotional reaction to it. She was from Tampa, and it just really, bothered her. And not just that, their Central Park and historic, the scrub is no longer there, and that,
Yeah.
but that, it's a reoccurring kind of thing. It's just, these neighborhoods, and they're disappearing. When, the old community leaves, it's made better. But
Mm-hmm.
the old community doesn't return, and she just, it can be like really overwhelming. And so that
Right.
was probably like a low point, because I do want people to leave the tour and like higher spirits. But I felt like she was so down. I was like, did you enjoy
Oh.
it? And she's like, so, but I understood. I
Right.
understood. And I would say like the highest point is just like, I, ironically, as like when we just can't stop. Like, we're on a tour, it's supposed to be 2 hours, but like 3 hours later, because there's so much
Right.
conversation and dialogue, and like somebody's telling me about something that happened to their grandma. And like the best is when people like text me after, they send me stuff, they like, they're tagging me on things they want me to read about. And it's like we just made such a connection that it just feels really good. Then I know like it really meant something
Yeah.
to people. So
I definitely, yeah, had emotions, but I feel like a lot of times it would be more awe, and I'd kind of alternate between awe and like anger.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that
Yeah.
feeling is it of like, if we were just allowed to prosper, just
Mhm.
think, like,
Mhm.
oh
Mhm.
gosh, it's just that like feeling of like, geez, just imagine where we would be
And
if we
even
had
Tampa, I think, would even be in this whole different place, just like financially for everybody.
100%. If that was still like a thriving blues and jazz district, and like if you
Mhm.
still had this like, vibrant Black economy, and, like there were businesses, and, it makes you just think about like, oh man, like all like we've lost.
Like
Not
what
just
kind of
the black
what?
Tampa, but like
Yeah.
all, like you said,
That's
all of
that's what I
Tampa.
mean.
Like,
I actually believe that all of Tampa would have been 100% better. So that was that your hardest one? Your hardest
okay, no,
moment
that
from
was
the
my
tour?
hardest and my best
Okay,
because
I
my
was gonna
best was
say that
also
sounded like
like,
it kind of both.
I know it was,
Yeah.
but okay, so that was my hardest, but my best is like when we just keep going, and I have gone to like lunch with people, like I have had conversations with people. Oh, I would say my best is like I had one family and then I ended up like helping their daughter. Siki, like she was doing like a Black History project and she was preparing for
Uh-huh.
the Black History Bowl, and and you just it is like a sense of community that gets built,
Yeah.
and like these were people that now would consider part of my village, and I just know them from doing the tour. Like that's it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that.
that's a good thing. Yeah, yeah.
How has social media played a role in shaping this tour's reach and impact?
Oh my gosh, the TikTok algorithm is real.
Yes.
I was not a believer. I was like like I'm an Instagram person, and you have your website, and I just was like, oh, TikTok, the Chinese out there like spying on me. I don't want to do it, but it is real, and like social media not only just allows you to put your information out there, there is like a real sense of connecting with people. Like
Uh-huh.
because I find super interest in what people doing. Because you gonna get me to buy one of them Pilates machines. I was like,
Actually, I did my Pilates right before this.
I was like, she keeping herself honest by posting every
Yes.
day. Because I'm waiting for you not to post 3 days straight, and I'm gonna be like, what's going on?
That's what
I
I
was
want. That's what
I
I want.
know, and
So
I'm gonna
please
give it to
do.
you. I'm gonna give it to you. So I'm like, it is like a real. You do create like these relationships through social
Yeah.
media, and I just think it's
Actually,
easy.
that it's so funny as you're saying this. I'm like connecting the fact that that's actually how we know each other.
That's how we know each other. I mean, like for real.
Which is crazy. That's crazy that that's how I know you. Because I'm
Exactly.
like,
That,
yeah, I've been on her. No, I stalked you on the internet. You're right.
yes, yes, because I didn't see you in person until we did the Black History thing.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
felt like that I knew you already. That's how I met
right.
Ashley. It's like
Really?
I randomly posted something. I had like 6 followers. And
Mm,
like it got to Ashley, and then Ashley called me and was like, oh, where you can go find more information about this person, like go to the I mean, so without social media, those are like
yeah,
random, isolated, lightning strike kind of run-ins
yeah.
with people. And so
It's
it's
funny
made
because
all the difference.
today in one of the communities I was looking at in the archives, there was something about like a school or something, and I was trying to see if the school was still open. So when I Googled it, Ashley came up in a post she did about about
Yes.
the school. I was like, this is
Yes.
so crazy.
Yes. Like I
Yeah, like
saved
she's
her post.
one of the top searches for this
Yes.
information.
It works. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and I like now it allows you to have this kind of social media, like, kind of, I don't want to say Rolodex because that's like an old term, but almost like an old school encyclopedia of things. But they're just
Yeah.
like posts and tags and saves. And when I'm thinking about something related to a topic like the Black militia or Claire Fry, whatever, then I can
Mhm.
easily at my phone go back through and be like, somebody posted about that. Somebody, let me remember.
Yeah.
And it's super helpful to like lead you in the right direction and save time. Like it's awesome. But and also communicating and putting, reaching a customer base that you wouldn't. Look, I'm a testimonial person. Before I buy or do anything, I read all the reviews. It take me forever.
Yes.
Like my husband
Yes.
asked me, like, are you gonna buy like a new, dryer? I'm like, I am still researching. I'm reading like Google review. It take me months.
Yeah.
So
It took me a while to figure out which Pilates machine I wanted.
okay, so you need to do a
Yeah.
review on it then, because see, I that
We
be-
need
but
to do
that's
like
why.
functional, but cheap enough that I wouldn't regret my purchase if I didn't use it at all.
Yes, and then you wanna fold it up, right? So
And
it needs to be
foldable,
space
yeah.
saving. So, like, testimonials are everything for me, because that's what I look for before I do
Yeah,
something. I want somebody to give me the real deal. I wanna see if they're sponsored or not. Like, if it's an advertisement, like, I wanna know what people think. So,
yeah.
when I really started getting people to post their, like, their feedback or, like, about the tour, it really made a big difference. But I understand
Yeah.
that, because that's what I look for before I pay for
Right.
something or waste my
Yeah.
time. I'm like, I want to hear what people got to say first. So huge, huge
Yeah.
difference.
You're also doing the, like, snippets on history.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I do those because, like, you go down the rabbit hole, like searching something, and I don't really put stuff in that is covered on the tour, because
Mhm.
I want it to be like a good experience for people when they come. But
Right.
there's so much that happens and has happened in and around Tampa, the surrounding
Yeah.
county, that you never run out of things. But it takes me like weeks sometimes to like research it out, create like a timeline depending on what it is, and then making sure I have like good visual examples for people, because
Mhm.
I want them to know that I'm just like, look, you can go on social media and talk, I don't have no problem with it, go ahead. But I think there's a difference between just talking and then like reporting
Mhm. Right.
actual facts. So I mean, to me, I want to see the receipts. That's what I want to see. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I do that. I do that too, because it's just super interesting. Like, I'm
Yeah.
fascinated. So I'm like, I gotta share this with people.
Yeah, but, like, that's one thing with your social media and with Ashley's, and we keep saying Ashley, so for those of you that are listening, if you go to Black
Black
Tampa
Tampa
Historians
historians, yeah.
on their Facebook and Instagram page, a local historian, Ashley, has just so many stories that are like amazing. But same thing with the
Mhm.
What It Was Walking Tour Instagram, along with the testimonials from the tour. You can hear a lot of like really dope stories from Tampa's Black history. I think the other
Yes,
thing I would say with you two and your social medias is maybe I need to have Ashley as a guest. I feel like that's what
one
it seems
hundred
like
percent.
I need to have her
Yeah,
because yeah, anyways, I'm gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna reach out to her.
Yes,
But
yes,
one
yes.
thing I love is also your stories about women and just the impressiveness of women in these times that, you get actually, and I'll back up. The tour I was on, one of the gentlemen, what he was so shocked about was that where you sort of get taught all these narratives around what it must have meant to be enslaved or to be living in a time where your freedoms were so curbed and to still see such like entrepreneurship and innovation. He was really surprised by that. And I wasn't necessarily surprised in that way, but I do think a lot of times when you hear stories about the women, you add that layer on top of, being Black, potentially being enslaved or formerly enslaved, or a free Black person living in a place that has a lot of freedoms reduced, and you're a woman. So there's
And your
also all
woman.
of those things that they weren't allowed to do. And they still have so many amazing stories in Tampa of like these Black business women, Black
Yeah.
leaders who are women, like that. I would say between the tour and then your page, like some really cool stories.
Yeah, because I would say in general, just in gender bias, just women are, not noted as much through history, whether it's just
Yeah.
American history, what it doesn't matter. And so, every once in a while you hear about these like iconic, influential, women figures. And sometimes, they're like super like tragic or salacious, like the madam or the spy or the
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But, when you really hone in on what like the day to day was like, and that these women, I mean, it becomes less than a footnote. I mean, like, it's
mhm,
not even mentioned so
right,
often. But yeah, when you think about being a mother and a wife and a third class citizen, and still being an entrepreneur, what does that look like? How in
Right.
the world do you do that? I mean, it is
Yeah.
pretty fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, it's
For sure.
amazing.
Have you ever worked with schools, teachers, or students?
Yes, I did do something with like Booker T. Washington Elementary in the park one time. I definitely been contacted and asked, I had like a homeschool group ask about coordinating a tour. I recently went to Sumter High School and they had
Mm,
like a Black History kind of festival, kind of block party thing. And so I went out there. When I first started this tour, my whole vision was about the kids. I mean,
hmm.
I definitely, wanted to offer it to everybody, but I just thought because, my own kids coming up through the Tampa school system, I was shocked how little you learn about not just Black history, just like Florida history.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's not, and then like nothing about Tampa history, like the city you
Mhm.
live in. And so my whole vision was like, oh, this could make, be something good for like middle schoolers, high schoolers, or whatever. So that really is something I'm passionate about. I think, right now it's trying to reach out and coordinating field trips is a little bit difficult as teachers try to navigate, what's okay and
Yeah.
not okay. But it
Yeah.
is
One thing
something
yeah.
I'm interested in.
Well, I was going to say, I think one thing that helps teachers be able to do that is if they have almost like if you have a field trip guide where you see what state standards align to the content you're giving. If you go through, like this, I think I would say U.S. history and civics are probably the two. I'm thinking more so middle
Yes.
school and high school. If you go through the standards, you can see which standards are what content of yours aligns to
The
standards.
lines.
So you almost make it
That's a
easy for
great
them.
idea.
Yeah, because and then the other thing that one place that I've done some work with does is they actually do an invite to teachers to come to the place.
Maybe during the summertime too. Like,
Right. Yeah.
and when they have more time. That is actually a
Yeah. And
fantastic
just be like,
idea.
I'd
They
love
could
for you to come see how this content aligns to your subject and maybe we can do a field
yes.
trip next year. Yeah.
I'm actually going to do that. That's
Yeah.
really good because that's really what it's all about. Like,
Yeah.
you do want the younger generation to like not only realize, and they don't have to have like a racial tie to
Right.
the stories. I mean, you really don't, or to the history, but it is your history if you live in
Yeah.
Tampa,
Yeah.
particularly,
And
and
it's
it
so
helps.
interesting too. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. It's
Yeah.
like so, and it just helps you to me, I just say for the context of like what you're learning in American history, what you're learning
Mhm.
in, Florida history or whatever. So, no, that is the whole point is that my own children, you know, look, let me tell you this. And I think I said this before is that I'm like super into the Black Heritage stamps that they do at the post office. I gotta see if they did one last month. Did they discontinue it? They might have. I don't know. But I used to be like, me and my husband, February 1st, we would be there and we would get like the sheet of stamps and the poster or whatever, like every single year for the last
Mhm.
up to whatever years. And so I have the one of Malcolm X
Mhm.
because they did the Malcolm X one. And I was there. I was lucky enough to be there to get the poster because they only have like those or whatever. So I have that poster up in my house. And my son, who is 20, and I call myself like I rock for Black history, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
like I'm into it. He told me like 2 years ago when that he thought that was my brother, his uncle. Now my brother is a Black man and he does wear glasses. But I was like, yo, I'm slipping. He don't know Malcolm X. So I
Right.
say that to say the younger generation, they don't know. And if we don't
Mhm.
expose them, they
Yeah.
won't. You just can't
Yeah.
assume anything. How would they
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And I would also say, like, the state does actually have a pretty good amount of state standards about Black history, but
Do
one
they?
thing that really isn't in there is local history, obviously, because they're going to be more like statewide
Yeah,
standards. But a
right.
lot of the standards have like enough, where it's sort of like what are the entrepreneurs and innovators of whatever time period, so that,
Okay.
you know what I mean? So there is freedom within the state standards to show content that's more localized content.
Okay.
Because there's civics and government, there's world history, there's African American history is like an elective, but then there's U.S. history, and within all those, there's a lot of Black
Mm,
history embedded. So it's there. And then a
is
lot of
there?
the content that you're talking about is that even if your focus is Black history, it's still teaching them about like some form of civic engagement. So even if you're
There's
not necessarily
room.
looking,
There's
there's
room to
room.
connect
Yeah,
it. Okay. All right. All right. That's
for
a
sure.
great. I'm glad you told me that because that's a great idea, and I'm gonna focus in on that.
Cool. So, what
Yeah.
are your dreams for the future of this work? What does it look like 5 to 10 years from now?
I don't have no shortage of ideas. Sometimes the execution is not there, but I would love to have more than one tour. Like, this one focuses on downtown. I would love like
Mhm.
West Tampa, you know, maybe even like Progress Village or just different areas of town like Hyde Park. There were Black people that lived in Hyde Park and not just domestics, not just like Dobyville. There were some people of some status that lived there. And I would love to like have more than one. I would also like some sort of to be able to build it into like some type of like all day, all weekend experience, where you just have like a Black business, Black entertainment, Black cultural
Mhm.
weekend. And it's just one piece of that. So to have people, you know, come to town, be able to book at a Black Airbnb, be picked up, by a Black business and taken to like, make candles from like a Black art, whatever it is, and like
Yeah.
build that in into like a whole experience, but where the focus is really like history and culture, like as well as having a good time. So go to a Black restaurant and have like authentic, Tampa food, which I learned is like crab shala. And I was like, oh, I didn't know Tampa had its own, cuisine. So, I mean,
I
so
didn't know that
that would be,
either, actually.
I just learned. I was like, oh, I thought we ate the same thing as everybody else. But apparently there are some things that are iconically Tampa. And so,
Hmm.
I would just, that's like a long term vision. Like, that would be so dope. I mean, people don't, when you think about going somewhere and tapping into like Black culture or Black history, you think of Montgomery and Atlanta and, like DC. But I think
Hmm.
like Tampa we definitely have the history.
Yeah.
And we definitely have the community to support that sort of thing and bring tourists and other people to Tampa to see what is here to offer and what's here to learn. But so that's a goal.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely like in my head, I'm thinking about, like get your guide or Airbnb experiences, how you can like create these like tour things that people can sign up for through
Yes.
that. That sounds
Yes.
pretty
I
cool.
would love that. Like working with Camille, like I love what she's doing,
Mhm.
as far as like having like a space where you can
Yeah.
go and get like, Black, not only Black art, but Black, clothing and t-shirts and, jewelry. I love
Yeah.
that. It's like, how can we make that into like a
Mhm.
whole, experience for people?
Yeah,
So
like embedding it into the tourism of the
yes.
area. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, there's like a huge convention here like
Yeah.
every single week. Like you're in University of Tampa, you see people walk around with their lanyards and I'm like,
Yeah.
they don't miss a week here in Tampa where there's not
Yeah.
some big convention, and we know that there are people interested in Black culture, whether they're Black or not, that they just want to
Yeah.
experience like the city and its history. And so, yeah, that would be dope.
Well, that sounds really cool. So,
Mhm.
how do we support the work you're doing? So, people that are listening and they're like, "Oh my goodness, like where do they find you? How do they support this?"
Follow me on TikTok. What it was walking tea is the handle on Instagram. It's what it was walking tour. Same thing on Facebook. I also have a website, what it was walking tour Tampa.com. Come on a tour, tell a friend, reach out to me if you want a private experience. Kids are free.
Okay.
Free. Bring your kids. I recommend middle, high school. But if your kid gonna get on your nerves after, walking for 30 minutes, that's on you. But I
Right.
really want you to be able to bring your kids because I get it. They rather go to Busch Gardens and go somewhere else. So it's easier, at least if you don't have to pay for them to
Right.
rope them into the experience. So that's how they could help. Reach out, book the tour.
Awesome. I will put the links to all three of those things in the episode notes. Thank you so much for taking the
Thanks for
time to talk to me today.
having me.
I'm
I'm
always
so
fangirling.
glad I met you. You're like this little dynamo superwoman. So you got a fan. You
Awesome.
got a fan, girl.
Thank you. My guest is Ashley Morrow and her work documenting and elevating Black history in the Tampa Bay region. The reason this came about is in my last interview, we talked so much about Ashley that I was like, it looks like it's time to bring her on the show. Hello, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today and being a part of the podcast episode. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the ability to help come on here and speak with you all.
I'm excited. So, introduce yourself and any relevant information about.
My name is Ashley Morrow, and I'm a local Black historian who loves sharing Tampa's local Black history.
That's it.
Oh, and I'm a photographer and a videographer. So I like mixing those two and documenting some of the Black elders here in Tampa. So yeah.
Cool. So, what inspired your interest in Tampa's Black history?
What inspired my interest was learning about my own family's history and their involvement with the civil rights movement. We had an incident here in 1967 where a young Black boy named Chambers was shot by the police department and killed. And there was an unrest along Central Avenue, and some of the buildings got burned down. But there was a group called the White Hats that helped calm down the riots and the unrest, civil unrest. And what ends up happening is my great uncle was a part of this group called the White Hats, and he ended up going to DC and speaking to some of the officials up there. I think a Bobby Kennedy was related to, JFK, and I did not know that. So that kind of sparked my interest, and I just realized I didn't know something a lot of people knew, that were my elders. Now people in my age range, we didn't know nothing from nothing, but like the people that were here in Tampa for a long time remember the 60s and what happened in the 60s, and they remember some of these leaders that were their leaders at that time. Yeah.
Nice. Well, not nice, but
It was an interesting story. I got a kick out of
yeah,
it. I was like, wow.
here's an interesting story. Kind of sounds like for you, you realized you didn't know this story, but was there a moment when you realized that these stories of Black history in Tampa Bay were not being told widely?
Yes. I believe when I started sharing some things on social media and people started, grabbing onto it, like, oh, what
Mhm.
is that? And who is that? And I started finding information very easily about these people just through Google.
Yeah,
So then that's when I was like, okay, so we're not even searching. Like this information is like completely available to us through Google. Now, mind you, Google is not always 100% accurate, but there is a ground level search. Like there's like that surface
yeah,
information that's always out there on the surface. And sometimes if you dig a bit deeper, you can kind of disprove some of that surface stuff. But there's surface
right.
information. I was learning that a lot of people don't even know the surface stuff. So once I started looking at the surface stuff and sharing the surface stuff, I noticed that there was almost like a network, a Black History network here in Tampa that had already been created, and there was information that they were sharing. So I was like, well, let me go a little bit deeper and go a little bit further back. And so that's what made me go more into the archives to look at the less known Black history.
The archives,
Yeah, I
the
love
best.
they are the
There's really not like this normal accessible way for most of the Black history to come about. Like you really have to attend a talk, go on a tour, or just have access to newspapers.com or to these like what's the word?
ancestries with the
Ancestry
paywalls.
or academic journals. But yeah, like a lot of the content is behind paywalls. So I think that is what makes what you're doing so awesome, that you like take the paywall issue away and just bring it to the people. Speaking of that, how has social media played a role in shaping your work, particularly like your reach, your impact? And then after you talk about social media, please tell me everything about how this city council thing started for you as well.
Social media is very impactful. Now it's dangerous, as toxic as it is. It is also very impactful and helpful and has a great reach. So I am very thankful for that. And being able to put information on social media, people can access it. It's free for them to access and for them to learn from. Now, at the same time, there are people that put out a lot of crap. So that's where the archives help me, and I share
Yes.
those archives along with the information. So that way look, it's right there. It's not me. What it was, what's the guy say? Don't take my word from it, from reading Rainbow. He said, don't take my word don't take my word for it. Just, look at this. So that's
Yeah.
that's my approach. And then I'm not a social media person. I did photography. I got all the followers on there. That's fine. And then when I did this Black History page, Black Tampa Historians, I was like, I really do not want to do this again. So I would post maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. Like it was like not a consistent thing for me at all.
Mhm.
And it was never going to be a consistent thing for me at all, because I was like, I'm not really interested in the content machine at all. So
Right.
what ends up happening is with city council is I end up leaving my job. I was working a full-time job, and then I was in a space where I was like, well, I want to go back into photography. So I decided to go
Mhm.
back into photography, and I had more time. I had more autonomy over my time. And I was like, you know what? I
Yeah.
want to go back to city council, because I used to go into city council and just sit in the back of the room. I saw the late Councilwoman Gwen Henderson was a councilwoman over District 5. That's the area that I actually live in. And she was my SOAR, and she passed away in June, I believe, and June, July. It was in the summer. And I want to say I probably put my 2 weeks in maybe the week after she passed. And I was like, I'm just going to go do my own thing.
Mhm.
Um, and go back into photography. But that was at my happy space. And when I went into city council, the first time I went into city council, I don't know what it was, but someone just like, they keep going up here and ranting about any and everything. Let's just go, let's just go sit up here and talk about Black history. And so when I went up there, it was like a click. I can't even explain it. It was like this, something just clicked in my body and was just like, okay, you're in the right spot. This is where
Mm.
you're supposed to be. I can't even explain it. It was like when I stepped up to the podium, because I am not a public speaker at all. I do know how to
What?
get in front of somewhere and tap dance and tra-la-la and hold up some
I
time.
would say then
But
you did well.
no, when I was in high school, I used to always be the worker bee. I like with
Mhm.
city council, with my senior council, I was vice president. My best friend was president. Like I was always that person that was in the background. So
Yeah.
with this, I'm in the foreground, and I'm like, okay, I need to speak. I don't know what I'm gonna say, but I have these pictures. I know my uncle's story. I'm gonna start with that. So I went up there and started with that. And then I explained to them who I was. I'm a fifth generation Tampan. I am the great great granddaughter of Ella Mae Lunsford, who had Lucille Lunsford, who married Albert Shepard Morrow, who had Carl Morrow Sr., who had Carl Morrow Jr., who had me. So I've been here in Tampa. My DNA is here in Tampa. And I explained to them who my uncle was, and I just told you that was who that was. And I said, I'm just going to come back every week and talk about Black history. With city council, when I went there, I was just in a space of, let me just share Black history because I know that it exists. I have all this information. I got these binders back here, these 3 binders back here full of stuff. And I was just in this headspace of like, I need to put this somewhere. So
Binders of history. I like it. I like it.
it's binders.
So why is local Black history so important? And then how can communities preserve these sorts of memories if like the formal institutions, museums, schools, etc., if they're failing to do it? What can community members do if they're not necessarily an Ashley who's going to show up to city council?
I think local Black history instills pride in a community. And when you have pride in something, you take care of it and you preserve it. And the way that communities can preserve it, I believe, is through social media, one, and continuing to have community events and gatherings and things and passing down information, collecting things as a community and putting them in something. Education needs to be done as far as communities creating their own collections, right? Sometimes historical institutions, they want to take things, take, and put it in their own collection. And I'm like, why don't you start your own collection and let people purchase from you or borrow from you? I went to Blake High School, historically Black school. They have their own collection of stuff. Middleton has their own collection of things. I can, in my house, I have my own collection of things. I don't see it as that, but that's what it is. Once I realize what I'm looking at, I'm like, oh, this is a body of work, a collection of work. Now, what do I do with it? That's what people go to school for, like you, and y'all do something with it.
Yeah.
But people like me who just like to research stuff, we just have it in binders. It look like crazy people. So my outlet was city council. That was my outlet because I'm not writing any books. I don't, not say like in the 20, 30 years from now, I ain't got nothing else to do. And I feel like writing a book, but I have not doing anything with it right now. I don't have time to write books. What I can do is create experiences, whether it be through presentations and like we do the BEAT of Tampa Bay. I can do, social media and share information on social media. I can create programs for the youth. We can do things with this information and hopefully it generates interest and makes an impact. So that's what the goal is. Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Even just you're saying you have like the binders of books, and maybe for now it's staying in the binder, but I think that binder is contributing to these ways that you're putting it out into the community. One thing I'll say, the focus of this podcast is it's called Resting Places, Learning Spaces. It is primarily about how cemeteries and memorials can serve as places of learning. Some of it is like traveling somewhere and talking about how the space could work for a classroom.
Yeah.
Another thing that sometimes I do are interviews of people who are like stewarding the preservation of a cemetery or work related to cemetery or conversations around death. That was first season. When I was doing the first episode of this season, I was just talking about what I learned from season 1. And in that conversation came up this idea of absence, like where there's absences, that even though it's not necessarily like a cemetery or a dedicated memorial, that person who's filling in the blank of those absences is someone that is still doing the same idea of resting places, learning spaces. And that was how I ended up interviewing Jamila, because her tour, when you do that walking tour, there's like all these different historical markers all over the place in downtown Tampa, but none of them are about anything she's talking about, except for the one in front of that one church. So I feel like a lot of the work you do lies in that same area where there's all this history that people are just like never going to learn in some of those more accessible public places without you having that passion to just put it out there the way that you do. So that for you, just explain how you are ending up on this podcast that seems like it's about cemeteries. It's also really just about, well, I guess now we're just expanding the conversation to also be about these places where history should be taught and isn't
And it's
being.
memorialized and it's preserved.
You're,
So just like a cemetery.
the work you're
There's
doing is clearly
life.
memorializing and preserving it. So, yeah.
Right. There's life in those headstones, underneath them headstones, and there's life in these spaces. The Jackson House Place, there's life in those spaces.
Yes.
And we have to breathe life back into them because they will die off, they'll get knocked down. Stuff has already been knocked down.
Yeah.
And I'm just in this space. We have to save all the things.
All
Like
the things.
we're gonna get to that question later, but I have if I could, I'm going to get this house that's over here because it is Howard W. Blake's house, and I will turn it into like a museum for Black education because George S. Middleton's house is gone because it got knocked down during the urban renewal.
Mm-hmm.
Howard W. Blake's house is on 21st, and it looks dilapidated. Like whoever owns it doesn't even want that junk. So I was like, if I could get funding to buy that house, that's like my 10-year plan, and turn it into a museum. But this is definitely a residential area, so I don't know how that works. But
I mean, it's Tampa Bay. There's all sorts of businesses floating between residences.
right, they have that's off topic, but they have whole car dealerships at people's yards in East Tampa. Like it'll be cars stacked in the yard. I'm like, can they do that?
Yes, exactly. You can put a museum in a residential space.
It's a dealership.
My neighborhood is the same. Like, I'm like, there's like house, wedding chapel, house. Like, listen, anything is possible.
Zoning is out the window.
Are there any other things around for you, the future of your work? What does it look like 5 or 10 years from now?
I would hope that somehow this information gets organized, whether it's on a website, because that's accessible. And that's what I'm all about, accessibility and links and being able to click and just go to wherever you need to go to. But I want there to be like an accessible website that people can go onto and use for their research projects or use for their papers and things like that. I love how USF has a map and they GIS maps. I couldn't think of the name of that, the types of maps. GIS maps. GIS maps are amazing because you can layer them and put the map and place things on the map. Like I would love if there were maps that showed the map that we have today and then Sanborn maps on top of them so people can see how they line up of the Black communities. And I don't know, I could just see so much development. Like, you know how people look at spaces, physical spaces, and they see the development of a city? I'm like seeing the development of the landscape of Black history here in Tampa because we are very much so on, like, I feel like on ground zero. Like, we have to create a foundation for people to be able to build upon. Like, I would love eventually if there were like plays about the different scenarios. I'm not a playwright, but if I get funding to get some plays, I love play. I can't, like I said, I went to Blake, so I love the performing arts. Play, because that's how people learn. Like they could have taught me Hamilton till I was blue in the face in history class. I don't know them people. It wasn't until I saw Hamilton the play, and I was like, oh, like it clicked. That's what the arts
even
are for.
Beyond clicking, it pushed you to go look up stuff to see what's real from this story. It's missing.
Right. And so, like, I would love that aha moment, that click for people. And that's what the arts are for. And that's what connects a lot of people to history and lessons and things like that. Because for me, I personally had to take American history twice when I was at UF. I went to the University of Florida. I had to take it twice because it wasn't clicking for me at all. I dropped the class the first time. I took it again. And I may have got like a B or a C in that class. I was like, Jesus, take me. I just had to take it. So, it was, but history didn't interest me until I actually, got to learn it. And when you were able to find that connection, that's what pushed me to like, that added that reference point for me.
If you had college students with performing arts majors interested in helping with
Oh yeah,
developing
because
plays,
it needs to be done. If
yeah,
I would love musicals, plays, any of that, any of that.
just my mind's always
Yeah, the arts is like the best way I feel like to reach people about historical drama. I think that's what they call them. I don't know what they call them,
yeah.
but
Okay.
that is the best way. Because if you think about it, Hamilton clicked for a lot of people. Like
Mhm.
that thing clicked.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing the name Aaron Burr in high school,
Mm.
and what they made us say was Burr was a blur, and
Right.
he
I
didn't have a
remember.
stance. Burr was a blur. That's all I
No,
remember from my
locked
test.
in. Locked
That's
in.
it. You had to
I
give me a
know who he
rhyme.
is. I know what he did.
That's it. I don't remember what Hamilton did. I didn't remember what.
Right.
There was no Delilah, whatever the people name was. Work. None of them was in the story in the history book, but
Yeah.
all those characters were present.
All
And
locked
when
in
you Yes, when you add in those characters, that's
now.
when you get the story. Like there's more than just Madam Fortune Taylor. There's
Mhm.
more than just, Nancy and William Ashley. There's all these characters that are surround this story that make this story stick.
Yeah,
So,
after reading this book that you made me read,
no, I made sure.
okay, Ashley.
And I
Uh,
thank you, but it's a good resource.
okay. It's called Family Records of the African American Pioneers of Tampa and Hillsborough County. And yes, that is like 100% true, where we have these like big names in Black history. And it's similar to just like regular learning of Black history. You have like the big three, right? And then rarely learn these individuals in between. And just the amount of Black folks in Tampa who were doing incredible stuff at all points of the history, definitely worth continuing to tell that story.
Definitely. Definitely.
Have you ever worked with schools, teachers, or students with the work you're
Um,
doing?
yes and no. So not necessarily schools, but student groups. Like
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm in a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We have Delta Gyms. It's high school girls. And then there's other teen groups that I've gone to go speak to about either genealogy or Black history or specific stories. I've just spoken with the school board to some of their students sometimes. And now I'm working on trying to get into these different summer camps that are going on to try to see what's the best way to engage and get these little students moving, because I've never worked with middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be different. And then the goal would be, we brought up Jamila Davis from What It Was Walking Towards. The goal is to work with Jamila and hopefully you, Dr. Hillary, like on these experiences so that they kind of, they find their tribe. Because there are some history nerds. Like I wasn't a history nerd, but I was a person that I loved arts, loved theater. Like you could hook me with that.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what their hook is. Like there
Mm-hmm.
are organizations like G3 who hooks their kids with sports, but they're also mentoring them.
Right.
With this, like we could hook them with something, whether it is we go to visit museums, we go like on field trips to museums, or we go to field trips to learn about Black history, and that maybe hooks them, but they're also going to be this component where they're learning about how to do their own family trees, how to look up their own genealogy, how to tell stories, how to hear a story and be able to call, people on their stuff like, oh, that doesn't sound right because
Mm-hmm.
I've researched this already, or I know how to go and research this because I know where to find those archives. So information like that, I think is very important that these students get and learn how to do. I believe they're learning it in school, but I want them to learn it from, our standpoint and where we're coming from. So
How do you think educators can responsibly teach or engage their students with local Black history? One thing I will say before you answer this is the state standards for Black history are like, there's a pretty good amount of them, and they've added even more in 2022, I think. So there's a lot of, to me, easy places to make the connections, because ultimately you just have to make sure you're like standards based.
I would say let them make their own little discoveries. Just show them how to do the research and let them run wild and let them find it themselves. That's the best part, the discovery part of it all. And you as a teacher may know it already. you may be leading them in that direction, but they're going to make their own little discoveries. And that is, even with me trying to get the youth interested and involved in researching and looking all this stuff up, I need more eyes and more hands and more, like, I can't read everything. I would
Right.
rather you be able to come to me and say, I found this. And I'm like, high five. Let's put it out there, boo. Put your name on it. Bam. Like, if that's what you want credit, but the information is getting out there. That's all that matters. Like, I just really want the information to be put out there, and for it to be put out there in a way that is professional and something that's going to be timeless. And yeah, and I don't know, like I said, I haven't seen the blueprint. The blueprint is working in my head now that I have to try to make this work. Because like I said, I just did this paperwork today. I'm like, okay, this needs to work. This needs to be off the ground by next year. So I need to start putting things in place so that way the resource, this website is just a powerhouse of just resources and information. Yeah, and links.
When you say this paperwork, what are you talking about?
Oh, so I just applied today, and hopefully it goes through. If not, we're gonna send it right back to make Black Tampa Historians a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit. So it's already a state nonprofit. You can look it up on Sunbiz, but I have to apply for 501c3 status so that way I can apply for grants and get money. I did the easy 1023 form so I can get up to $50,000 in the year, and that should be enough to do whatever I'm trying to do. I'm not really doing anything big right now, so I am interested in trying to get some initiatives going, seeing what sticks. I'm the pivot queen. If something ain't working, I will pivot and say let's try something else. But with the amount of grants and money that's out there, people keep saying it's just going, like, I'm just like, hey, I might as well give it a try.
I think my last question then, I think we're on the last question. How do we support the work that you are doing? How do we find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, blacktampahistorians.com, as well as on Facebook, blacktampahistorians.com, and YouTube, blacktampahistorians.com. I also do some free public presentations with some amazing Black women in history, Black history here in the Tampa Bay area, Dr. Hilary Van Dyke, Dr. Cheryl Rodriguez, and Tamara Taylor. And we do that every other month, usually. And what it's supposed to be is basically just a public forum for a speaker to come and talk about Black history. Our next one is coming up in July, and Dr. Hilary Van Dyke will actually be sharing with us about the Black life in Pinellas County. I think it was called We've Been Here. So she's going to share with us.
It is focused on nature, just to be specific.
It's focused on nature because she's a nature girl. Yes. So we are all inclusive here. So we're happy to have her. And then we also look forward to having some talks with the Jackson House, as well as bringing Jamila on. We have other women and men here that share Black history, Miss Ursula Odom, Miss Gloria Jean Royster. There's a lot of people that I can think of off the top of my head that need that platform to put their stuff out there and have it recorded. I think that's what we're missing a lot of time. It's not recorded. Like, a presentation happens in this room, in this vacuum, and then it doesn't get out. So I really value streaming and sharing things on video. And you can find more information about the BEAT of Tampa Bay on Instagram and Facebook, as well as the live streams on YouTube. Those are posted on YouTube, and it's live streamed on Facebook. And then if you would like to catch the City Council talks, those happen at 9 a.m. at City Council. If you go on YouTube and look up Tampa City Council meetings at 9 a.m. on Thursdays, the first 3 Thursdays of the month, you will hear public comment towards the beginning of the meeting, and I usually come up. There's no order or anything. They usually have people that are talking about line items on the agenda first, and then they have people that, like myself, that are coming up there to talk about whatever they want to talk about. So just turn that on while you're at work in your background and have us add some background noise. It gets very interesting.
The City Council meetings you can find at youtube.com/@cityoftampameetings/streams. As you can hear, maybe my dog has decided that this is over. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. Love talking to you and learning more about the work that you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Hello, Michelle. How are
Hello,
you?
Hillary.
How's it going?
It is going really well. It's really nice to be at home and doing this. It's a different vibe, and I like
Yeah.
it.
I like it too. I like it too. So, I'm really just curious what you, as you were listening, you were thinking, like what was happening in your brain? Tell me.
So many things. So I was listening in the car to your interviews, and I had to. I'm driving, so I have to be a safe driver, but I was in the conversations, and every time I stopped at a traffic light, I grabbed my little pad of paper that I always keep by, and I jotted down a couple notes of this, and this, and also this, and also this. It was a really fun listen. So my first thought was around context, because Jamila started talking about how, as just a learner herself, she loves wherever she goes to find out more about that space and
Yeah.
what its story is, and all of those historical markers, which just really resonated with me because I am an avid reader of historical markers. Every
Same.
place I go, just have to stop and read it and be amazed by the history that has happened everywhere around me. So if I can, just for an example, just a few weeks ago, we were in Pittsburgh, which I have never been to Pittsburgh before, and I had the opportunity to sort of wander by myself through some of the city, and I found a historical marker that the start of the country of Czechoslovakia, which now is no longer a unified country, but the start of Czechoslovakia happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yes, because there were such big communities there, that's where they came together and had their conversations
Wow.
and began the country of Czechoslovakia. Craziness. So yeah, so everywhere I go, I love the historical markers. And but what she then wrapped that into so brilliantly was then talking also about narrative, because those historical markers are standalones.
Right.
They tell a particular story, but they don't connect the dots about that space. And so what she has brilliantly done is taken all of those spaces and helped her participants connect the dots and have a narrative about the city of Tampa and its history of Black Tampans. And that was just amazing to me.
Another thing I really liked about Jamila's tour is that it is chronological. I think a lot of times when we do history tours, it's just sort of whatever happened in this space, whether or not we're like in kind of the order of time. So I really like that because it felt like there was more context, and then even how sort of the rights grew and then reverted, you really get a sense of that because of the flow of it. And I
Yeah, and
think
that
that just
is,
helps you kind of understand the situation better.
it does. And it's so important for our students, especially when they're coming to the history for the first time, to have that chronological timeline, to be able to put those things in order so that they can see, as you said, so they can see where there were the growth and then decline, and
Right.
right, so that they understand that flow, which is really important to understanding where we are right now.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
What other thoughts were you having as you were listening?
So the next one that came up was because she was talking about how she got to where she is, where
Hmm.
she was saying how she was in Tampa and she felt that there wasn't a lot of culture. And she realized that that can't be right, but how she came to understand how the community was and why she felt in today that there wasn't a culture there. And it's because of all of these conversations we've been happening about the growth and decline and the valuing of community, and how that grew and waned, for very specific reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So that was really important to me because I've struggled with that too. And I think we kind of all do if we're coming to Florida from other places, because we do, and she had also brought up how we don't teach local history, and it's not in our benchmarks. And so it's really incumbent on the teacher to try to bring that into the classroom. And if you are coming from another part of the country, which is very true in the Tampa Bay area, it's really hard to do that because you just don't know. I really took that to heart, that under where she was feeling like, well, there's just really not any culture here, and then how she felt the epiphanies she was having of, okay, look at what happened here, and figuring out how to tell that story, and that helped her connect to community. Yeah, so I enjoyed her conversation around, or her feeling that she didn't understand the culture of the place she was in, and didn't recognize that the culture of course exists, but it's been muted because of very specific historical circumstances and factors. I felt that was a really important point that she was making in an area that has been created or built by people coming into the area from other spaces, and feeling that they don't know and aren't contributing to the culture that has always been there.
Yeah, I think you can juxtapose it too with Ashley, where I can't remember if she said a fourth or fifth generation Tampan, where she has that backstory, and then even her entry into history was partially because of these like cool stories that she has about her family. But I think it's a little easier for someone who is from Tampa to be able to quickly either like put maybe have their pulse on where the culture is, or at least be able to create it because they already have some of those networks. The other thing I would say is I thought it was funny too that by the end of the conversation with Jamila, she's planning a tour, right, for people to come and spend a weekend and have like a Black History weekend.
Yeah.
So it's such a huge jump from kind of where's the culture, is the culture, to actually, y'all come down here and experience this history and culture. Yeah.
And I think, just also in terms of now being part of this community and this area, and feeling like, yes, that is something that our area, we have so many tourists coming here for many different reasons. This is another really great way for them to make connections, and something valuable that we can offer those visitors that are coming here. The next thing that really resonated with me was, again, just in her founding of what she's created, the business that she's created, of the way that she phrased it was, I just have to do it. Right? So it doesn't seem to be something that people are aware of, and rather than complaining about it, I just need to jump in and start doing that work. And for me, that was that through line of all of these episodes where we're talking about civic engagement of our communities, was that space where the individual said, I just need to fill this because it's not being filled. It's important to me. And as a person in this community now, this is the path I'm going to take.
Yeah. One thing Ashley didn't talk about that because these interviews happened a little while ago now, and actually to everybody, I don't have a set schedule of when these go out. I'm just trying to do 10 a year. My bad, Just subscribe, the release schedule is vibes, right? If I make a real release schedule, it'll start to feel like work, which I don't want to do. But it has been a while since I recorded these. And so since then, one thing I learned that Ashley is doing is she actually is making like a primary source database for public access.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because one thing about a lot of this is everything just about is public access. There's a few paywalls, maybe for like newspapers.com. But other things, for the most part, a lot of this is out there. It's just people don't know how to look for it. And so she started actually creating a database to help people be able to just find the sources. Because I think even in this conversation, as much as we talk about teachers should use local history and primary sources, teachers don't have time to search. And so having a resource like this, I think, would be really instrumental in getting more people to engage in Tampa history, but particularly when we're thinking about teachers, when we're thinking about college students looking for research topics. So there's definitely a lot of potential for that primary source database to really take off.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I didn't even realize that. That's going to be a huge resource for teachers. Yeah. I mean, you go back to her phrase of, I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They both really they're both just the I just have to do it sort of people, because they're like, this need exists. No one else is doing it. I'm just going to do it.
Do it. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And we all get to benefit from it, which is just even
Okay.
better.
We do.
The next thing that really struck me as she was talking about how she conducts the tours, when she was discussing how she has to be mindful of her tone
Hmm.
because she's in neighborhoods, she's in public spaces, and the fact that what she's discussing can be polarizing, that she's mindful to be inclusive
Yeah.
and to make sure the focus is on what people can learn from these spaces. And so I just felt like that was so well done and mindful. And I don't think we're always that mindful, but I know our teachers have to live in that mindful space. And so I really appreciated her conversation around that. Could you talk a little bit more about how you guys were talking about that?
Yeah, I actually can talk about experiencing it too because we're stopped on a corner and she's, talking about whatever and but there's people right here.
Right.
And so I am always so self-conscious and overconscious of humans around and making sure we're safe and no one's going to go, get upset. And in both scenarios, so one was just on the corner somewhere downtown. I think it's by where the Woolsworth used to be. And the other one was in front of a hotel. And there was people out there while she was telling us the history. And they just looking at their faces, there was no change in affect or anything. If anything, they were like leaning in and learning. So
Mm,
I definitely, when she said that, resonated with it because I had the two moments on the tour where I was like, oh no, is this going to be awkward? And it was totally fine.
right.
Yeah. And I would agree. Some of it's her tone. It's super matter of fact. It's not really like embellishing. There's no editorializing. It's like, this is the thing that happened and I got this information from, or, in the Tribune it tells us, or in the property records it tells us, like that sort of
Mm,
thing. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, no, because it just sounded so much like the conversations I have with teachers and just understanding your benchmarks. You have to teach this
You have
history.
to teach this history.
And right. And so it is about giving students the information and working with them to learn how to think through that and how to process that rather than telling them how to process that, which is, I mean, 9/10 of teaching social studies is, right? Um, yeah, really important. And really, it was really wonderful to hear her talk about that from a completely different perspective. But I mean, she's
Right.
in education too, whether she realizes that or not, she is in education. But that flows directly then into her research because you aren't able to create that narrative without having really strong research. And so to hear her talk about her process of how she conducts her research just made me so happy because I mean, it is such good research and understanding that she's come at this from the amateur's perspective,
Right.
getting into it rather than someone who's been trained in how to do this was so wonderful to hear and hear her be excited about was so wonderful as well. And then thinking about our students that we asked to conduct research and she's hitting on all of those things of just even you have to use keywords, but you have to use keywords in all kinds
Yeah.
of different right in all kinds of different aspects because you can't just it's just um, the example she gave of lynching was okay, but I have to also use lynched or lynch or lynching and all of the different ways that you can use that word to try to find that in the historical record. And then
Right.
as she was saying, she's searching the index and all the different ways to find the pieces that she needs made me really, really happy.
One thing I just texted you, I had to look for it real quick, is a Instagram reel from I think July of Ashley and Jamila teaching young people, I think middle schoolers or high schoolers, how to do
Mm,
some of these search skills. And I'll put this in the show notes, folks, so you can see it too. But I think that was even more exciting just to see everything you're talking about, but seeing how they're like showing maybe not quite as in depth with the indexing per se, but just still some of those research skills to learn about these different people and incidents in Tampa. Yeah,
Yeah, and
they're
how
yeah,
she's recognized that she can't just go to newspapers. She's also going to the Sanborn maps, and she's also going to property records and doing that really in-depth historical analysis that usually we think is reserved to the historian who's going to write
right.
books, but is now being used to the benefit of her community was fantastic.
I'll actually give another example of that, which now has me thinking that this maybe should be my next interview. Is there is a woman, Miss Jackie, I'm blanking on her last name, who accidentally basically started this research project in Waimama. There's an abandoned cemetery there, and it's an abandoned black cemetery. And as she started doing work on preservation and conservation of the cemetery, basically stumbles into this treasure trove of black historical information that Waimama didn't really keep in any way, just wasn't there. Down to where literally there was an actual high school, a Hillsborough County high school there that Hillsborough just forgot about, doesn't have in their records. There are people who graduated from that high school who don't have diplomas, and the work that she has literally been doing, just a regular civilian who doesn't have this as like formal training, has been working with USF, Hillsborough County Public Schools, and I'm not sure who their other partners are, to track these people down and give them their diplomas.
Yes.
They also have started a research center about Waimama's Black history because the school district didn't even know the school was there, right? So
Mm,
it, but all of this started with primary sources,
right.
like researching people's things on ancestry, the property records, and then it just continued to like send her down
Snowball.
this rabbit
Yeah.
hole of realizing how much Black history there was in Waimama that was just in the newspapers. But it was the same conversation we've had several
Yeah.
times about how
Yeah.
newspapers don't include information about the Black community sometimes unless it was negative in those times.
Or
Yeah.
it was just a footnote of here's this whole page about, for example, one county school district, and then here's the little segment about the black school in that school
Right.
district.
And it would be like colored schools, and then it just says the school names and numbers. It's wild, the sorts of things that people can really learn if they get into records. And you do have to just be like Ashley and Jamila and Miss Jackie, where you're like, if not me, then who? So I'm just going to do it. And
Yeah.
then make sure that this information's out there. But I think for our purposes too, the idea that they also now are like thinking, how do I bring children into this? How do I make sure they know how to do the same work? Is no notes, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. But it does also attest to the fact of how our technology has gotten us to the place where an amateur can do that.
Yeah, that's very
That you
true.
don't have to be the person that can go to the archive and spend X number of hours because you have nothing else to do to be able to do that research. It can be done by the amateur, and then they share that with others so that it
Right.
becomes a common record.
And even everything where it's how it's all connected, like newspapers, ancestry, family search, you can be at home doing a lot of this. And another thing that is not as maybe trustworthy per se, but still important is findagrave.com.
Mm,
What I recently learned is on Find a Grave, you can actually like import primary sources as well to attach to historical records.
that's
And
fantastic.
that is a good idea only because then it adds more legitimacy to the
Right?
cemetery's information and history. So if someone's searching for a human that's buried there and then they find it, if you actually attach these sources to the person, then we can ensure then that our historical record we're creating about the person is real
Right.
versus whatever kind of made you can make anything up and put it on Find a Grave. So you really want to attach real
Right.
sources to the person's name so then that becomes a real source that's trustworthy.
So that leads me really well into the last point that your conversation with Jamila really made me perk up my ears, and that was in the topic of media literacy. And I know she wasn't doing that on purpose. I know she wasn't thinking, and now let's talk about media literacy.
Right.
But she fully did, and so wonderfully, because it was real and it was her experience, and it was her process, and it's just part of now how she does her work. But it's something that in the school districts we are so concerned about, because we know kids are just going online and finding things, and we haven't always given them the tools to vet what they're
Right.
finding. And
Right.
so to hear from an adult who's doing that work, who has discovered, oh, wait, I need to figure out who created this and
Right.
why they created it and how that helps me understand what I'm looking at, is exactly what we need to be able to do with our students. And I think because she's an adult and she has lived experiences, she is naturally inclined to ask those questions, whereas our kids really aren't, because they're still in that time of life where they're very trusting, which is wonderful, but also scary when you're
Mm.
letting them loose online. So in the conversation she was having, even about how she reviews everything before she goes to buy something, is
Yeah.
the kind of conversation we need to have with our students, so that even if, okay, you're reading a review, but who is this person who created the review? And why is that a review you're giving weight to over
Right.
perhaps something else? But then that then leads to sourcing. So who created it, why they created it, who was their audience, what was their intention, what's their goal with what they've put online. But then comparing that to our historical record then is the corroboration. So as you were just saying, on Ancestry.com, on Find a Grave, you can attach all of these documents, but if I'm going in afterward, does that document make sense?
There's a story of something called Dade's Massacre, where on the way from, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
Ocala to Tampa, there is a massacre, which we're going to put in
Yep.
quote marks. It's actually just
It was an
actually, the whole
ambush. Yep.
story is like really exactly what you're talking about. They call it Dade's Massacre. It happens between Ocala and Tampa. And what happens is
Major
during the
date.
Seminole Wars, they have these soldiers marching, and it's hundreds of soldiers over several days doing this march. So you're like really loud. Like it's not
And
some
you're leaving a
secret
footprint.
mission. And then they happen to also be attacked by Native Americans, so they call it a massacre. But really, they're in the heat of the Seminole War, so it is just a military battle. Like it's a battle.
And
It's not a
actually,
campaign.
in the historical record, we wouldn't even really call that a battle. It was a skirmish.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a skirmish, right? It's not a massacre. But what I learned when I was doing this research is that they said there was a black man named Louis Pacheco who was enslaved, who they had hired to guide them because he spoke indigenous languages, he, spoke Spanish, all the things, or whatever the languages he's supposed to speak are. And in the record, if you are reading what I can't remember the name of the general or captain that was leading it. They blame it
Dade.
on. Oh, it's
Major
Dade.
Dade.
Yeah. So Dade and etc. Him and his other people. I was like, is it Dade because of the guy or is it Dade because of the anyway? So Dade, etc. Their records all basically blame this on Louis Pacheco, and they say, oh, like he was working with the Native Americans, and then once it was time, he like disappeared into the brush with them, and he's the reason. But it comes down to sourcing, like, with why is that how they want you to believe that that's how it went down? Like, why are we calling it a massacre? And
Hmm.
ultimately, it comes down to the source of that information.
What was their purpose for writing that? Was to get more money from the federal government,
Yeah,
so that and more men, so that they can
right.
continue with. Mhm.
And then the big thing, though, is for me, because I know it as Dade's Massacre. I recently learned about the Louis Pacheco of it all. But one of the things that is interesting is like within the next decade. First of all, Louis Pacheco is also captured, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. I was just like, y'all hired me and I'm doing my job. But he has something later where he's like, that is not what happened. He defends himself years later, but the popular lore here is not that. It's that it
The
was
record
his
has
fault.
been written.
But it comes back to sourcing where you're like, well, what is the motivation behind that being how this narrative was spun? And why don't we also then introduce what Luis Pacheco says? If we go back to the sources actually tell us that's not how it went down.
And it gives you a richer story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it is great to think this one location was where everything happened, which the vacation I took and all the places I was going through Pennsylvania was like George Washington was everywhere. But you know, I mean, he wasn't. But it makes for an easier or nicer, neater storyline. But when we can be more accurate with our history, we can see a richer history and more people
Yeah.
are involved.
But even with the Pacheco situation, what an interesting way to actually just show both that journal and then this interview where Pacheco's like, that's not what happened. And so then that becomes these great conversations of what is the motivation of Dade to make people afterwards believe that this is how it happened.
Yeah.
So, good stuff.
History is so much fun.
So fun.
So frustrating, but so much fun.
That too.
So, once again, well done. Great job. Thank you. Thank you for finding the stories that you find and the people that you interview because they just make us all a little bit richer.
Well, thank you for listening and for sharing your thoughts. I know it was a long one, but thanks for hanging with us. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share with your fellow educators, travelers, or anyone interested in the intersection of history and place. You can also follow me on Instagram at Professor Van Dyke to continue the conversation or recommend a topic. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, every resting place has a story to tell.